Good morning, everybody. Kind of loud. So, give you a quick update on the police department. I'm here. He covered for me last month, Lieutenant Hergt, one of my recent promotions. We're very fortunate. We promoted 7. We've hired 24 police officers in the last year. A bunch of CSRs, community service representatives. We created a new position called traffic officials. They are retirees who aged out after 65. They can still help us with traffic details. So that's kind of exciting. We have 9 coming out of F-Field training right now. I call them the Linfield 9. They just graduated from Linfield Academy. And what's unusual is, first, I've never put 9 people in the academy at the same time. And to have them all graduate is really an accomplishment. And it goes, it's telling for them, but it took us, we went through 69 people to get to these 9, and I promise you they're all exceptional. They're going to be exceptional police officers. We've also hired 12 lateral transfers. We have 1 that's in field training that's going to be coming out soon, and we have another officer from Franklin PD who will be starting in the next couple of weeks. The town manager, we have 2 retirements coming in January. So the town manager has allowed me to put 2 people in the academy December 9th right here in Falmouth to get going on that. So I'm very pleased. So we'll have 3 entering the police academy, hopefully December 9th, and then we'll be at full strength, which is nice. We haven't been there since 2008. We're finishing up basically a basic personnel study. Captain DeCosta's helped me with that. Lieutenant Hergt, to show where we really need to be personnel-wise. As you know, the fire department's over 100 strong, and we're slated at 67, and it's just very short staff. We don't have the 30 summer police officers anymore that come in and augment the staff, and quite frankly, our population really does require us to have more staff. If you believe we're 33,000, I said this before a couple of months ago, we should be 78 sworn. And in the summer, when we swell to over 100, we should be 230. Now, we know we're never going to have 230 police officers here in Falmouth, but definitely 67 is very short, especially when we want to create a traffic unit to deal with some of those issues in town. I got a few nice emails in comment. We had a coffee with a cop Saturday, 2 to 4 down at Woods Hole. They're having some issues with idling trucks and different things. So we're trying to address that with the current staff, but it's difficult at times with the call line that we have. But what I am doing, October 14th, when the last person comes off FTO, I'm going to be putting another half a school resource officer in the school, so we'll have 1.5. I'm going to have someone that's going to be designated to doing traffic enforcement at least 8 to 16 hours a week. And we're adding a detective to the Detective Bureau. They're extremely busy in the Detective Bureau, dealing with everything from human trafficking, narcotics, I mean, you name it. So it's a very busy town. It's a beautiful town. I want everyone to feel safe in Falmouth, but there's definitely an underbelly here that we deal with on a daily basis. I mean, I get a report from each supervisor at the end of every shift, and they list notable calls. And it's just some of the things that they're dealing with. It's just really quite busy, and I'm sure the lieutenant can share some of that with you. On the new station, we hired a project manager company called Hergt. They are putting out, I think it's this Thursday, they're putting out for an architect firm. So hopefully in 2 weeks, we'll pick an architect firm. We'll do the feasibility study, find out how big the station needs to be, where it needs to be located, and then hopefully come to you folks at town meeting in the spring or next fall for funding. So, I mean, we're really excited about that. I can tell you right now, there's a line to use the restroom. We have 1 urinal on the first floor. It's too small. It's just we're bumping into each other like you wouldn't believe. We ran out of lockers. There's just no space. It's something, and we just can't keep the water out. We're trying. We're going to replace a few windows. Like I said, I hate putting good money into bad, but we want to make sure it stays clean. We want a healthy environment for our staff. And the staff, I got to tell you, they're doing an amazing job. Very, very pleased with the last coming on over a year here now, coming on a year and a half, watching them grow, the career growth, training. It's just really exciting. Did I miss anything, Lieutenant?
No.
Sure. So what we're going to talk about today is something that I've been involved in. I embraced this early on after we had some of the issues, the social injustice issues across the country, called the ABLE program. I'm not going to steal his thunder. So I implemented this in Westboro. I came to Falmouth and I said to Sergeant Hergt at the time, who's now Lieutenant, I said, can you research into this? Duty to intervene, health and wellness for our officers. And he took it one step further. He said, not only did I research it, I'm going to work on implementing it, with your approval and of course approval. So we're actually training the entire department right now in this, and to include myself. And we're going to offer it to all the communities that are around us as well, because I think it's extremely important to embrace initiatives that better serve you folks and the police department. So, like I said, very, very happy. The last year has been very rewarding for me as chief. I absolutely love it here. And love living in Falmouth. Literally, it's just an awesome police department and community. And with that being said, you're up. Handing off the baton.
Thank you, Chief. I had the privilege of being here last month as well. Some of you weren't here. My name is Lieutenant Ryan Hergt. I've been with the police department for 9 years. Before that, I spent 2 years working at the National Street Jail for the Suffolk County Sheriff's Department in Boston. That was my first job in law enforcement. Needless to say, I think my career change was for the best. That would have been a long 32-year career to spend in the jail, so I learned a lot of good things. But I'm originally from Falmouth. I don't think I said this last time. I graduated Falmouth High School in 2005. Went to Bridgewater State and got my degree in criminal justice at Bridgewater. Graduated. Took me a few years to get on. Policing's changed. That time, about 2009, 2010, we had a lot of returning veterans back from overseas. They got first dibs at a lot of the police jobs, so it took me 3-4 years to get on to the Sheriff's Department. In the meantime, some of you may remember me as your friendly bartender from Liam McGuire's, where I spent 5 years. So that's been sort of my career path. I spent a few years on the road as a patrol officer. After about 3 years, I got a specialty assignment. I got assigned as a school resource officer for Falmouth High School in Lawrence. I spent 2.5 years doing that, which was really nice. My wife is the assistant principal. She's been at Morse Pond, and now she's at the high school right now. So she really enjoyed that time. Our schedules lined up for the first time in our lives. And then I got promoted to sergeant in 2020. And I was assigned to, between all 3 shifts, I worked evening shift, midnight shift, day shift. So I did that for about 3 years before I got my most recent promotion in July to lieutenant. In this role, I split my time between patrol operations. Lieutenant Sean Doyle is a full-time patrol lieutenant, and I help him with that, which is really needed right now because, like the chief said, our staff is increasing by the week, it seems like. The lieutenant's office is in the middle of the department, and so we see what's going on both sides, and the congestion in that building is unbelievable. It's really good. Officers are enjoying meeting new people. The training's been fantastic. We have a dedicated group of about 10 field training officers who just trained 9 officers the last 12 weeks, and they're really doing a good job. So I have some other duties. I became the public information officer, which I told you folks last time. It's kind of ironic because I do not enjoy public speaking. And 2 weeks ago, I actually got on camera for the first time. I spoke about scams last week, last month, and between last month and this month, we had another major scam. One of our officers was able to intercept a gentleman who was trying to give $10,000 cash to a scammer. You'll see around town, if you notice in some of the convenience stores, there's 2 ATMs now. There's a cash ATM and a Bitcoin ATM. So that Bitcoin ATM allows you to put cash directly into the Bitcoin system, to the blockchain. That is very hard to identify for officers once it's gone. Once it's in the machine, it's almost always gone. So our officer who was in there getting his pre-shift coffee saw the gentleman with the large stack of cash, spoke to the clerk and said, "Do you know what's going on over there?" And the clerk from Cumberland Farms, he identified it as a scam too, and he had tried to stop the gentleman. So Officer Lowell went over, introduced himself, created a dialogue with him, and was able to convince him he had fallen victim to a scam. There was a loss of about $600, but that was it. He was ready to give almost $10,000 to the scammers. So that was a really, but anyways, that story caught wind, and the next thing you know, Fox 25's at the police station looking to do an interview. So I got my first on-camera interview a few weeks ago. I spoke for about 5 minutes, and they put 9 seconds on there. But it was good. I got it over with. So I also serve as a civil rights officer for the town. Every department in Massachusetts has to have a dedicated civil rights officer. In essence, it's a subject matter expert on hate crimes and civil rights violations. I monitor them. I help with officers' investigations. I work with community organizations before and after these incidents happen. We report our hate crimes to the federal government. They publish every year. Last year, we did have 2 hate crimes documented in the town of Falmouth. Transitioning into an event we're having, I want to plug on October 20th from 2 to 4 at Falmouth High School Library. We're partnering with the Cape and Islands DA's office, the Barnstable County Commission on Human Rights and Racial Justice Falmouth, and we're putting together a community presentation on hate crimes. It's called Understanding Hate Crimes. So I'll be speaking at that. We're going to have the head of the Barnstable County Human Rights Commission speak as well, and some representatives from the DA's office. Afterwards, there'll be a panel discussion. You can ask questions. There'll be prompts, and then afterwards, various community groups will hold vendor tables. So if you guys are free on Sunday, October 20th, from 2 to 4, highly suggest you research it. That is going to be aired on FCTV. So if you don't make it, you can look on the TV and try and find it replayed. So we're excited about that. But going back to the patrol, like the chief said, we're getting so many new patrol officers. Our shifts are finally fully staffed. We have 13 officers assigned to day shift, 13 assigned to the evening shift, and 12 assigned to the midnight shift. Looking out at the schedule, once these 9 graduate, we're going to have some nights 8 or 9 officers on the road. So we're excited to do some creative things with these officers. We're going to be dedicating an officer to doing traffic during a shift. We're going to pair up officers to do proactive crime control. We'll be utilizing officers in plain clothes. So the officers are very excited to have staffing. We're also looking on the patrol side at adding to our sectors in town. You all probably know we have 5 sectors, so we have a patrol car in each sector in town. We're going to be looking at a 6th sector in town to reduce response times and improve police services throughout the town. So we're excited to do that. We're working with the patrol officers right now at identifying what areas need more help, who needs a more sector. Take the north sector, for example. You got all the way from Old Silver Beach, you have all of Hatchville, all the way to Sandwich Road, all the way to 151. It's a very large area we'd like to cut down. And the areas are changing in town. We have new housing developments going up all over town. We got to take into account those population changes. We respond to the hospital in Goswell more than we ever have before. So that's in the west sector. So that west sector car has to cover all of Woods Hole, all the way up to the hospital, all the way to about Chappaquay Beach. And that's a large area, so we're looking to cut down that area. So I think it's really good we're getting the staff. We're going to be able to provide better police services to you folks. So when the chief got hired, I think it might have been our second conversation, when he found out I was a civil rights officer in town, he had established the ABLE program, which I'm going to present on today. And he asked me he asked me to look into it. I looked into it, I found out there was 17 departments in Massachusetts that were ABLE trained. There are over 4,000 departments. The state of New Jersey and the state of Colorado mandated for every single police officer. So I got really excited about it. It's a great program. Police officers train on different systems. We train on weapon systems, we train on de-escalation tactics, we train on mental health responses. intervening when you see something going wrong, specifically intervening when you see other officers doing something wrong, and whether it's misconduct or mistakes, and there's a difference, I'll go over that. We want our officers to be able to be comfortable intervening when they see something going wrong. A little history about ABLE right now. It was created shortly after 2020, after the George Floyd incident. I think a lot of us have seen at least portions of that 9-minute video, but there was one officer doing something wrong and 3 officers watching doing nothing. The whole point of this program is to empower these officers to step up, take control of the situation, and stop that officer that they see doing something wrong. So that's the basis of the program. It's based on years of social science. And I have one video I want to start with. This was from 2004. It was an NBA basketball game in Portland. It was the Portland Trail Blazers. And I'll set it up and you guys can watch, but it shows the power of being an active bystander, what one person can do to change the course of an event. So I'm going to play this out, and then I'm going to do my presentation. We'll refer back to this.
And salute the men and women serving our country with our national anthem. Please welcome, as voted by you, the fans, our winner of the Toyota Get the Feeling of a Star promotion, Natalie Gilbert.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed, and the stars out, stars. Stars like destiny, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. For the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, and singing gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
All right. Is this microphone on?
Is President Biden.
All right. So that was from 2004, Portland Trail Blazers. That gentleman who went over to help the singer who was struggling, that was Maurice Cheeks. That was their coach. But I think that video is really powerful because it shows the power of one person stepping up and doing the right thing. There was about 30,000 people in that stadium, and all she needed was one person to step up, intervene, help her. You can see he put his hand on her shoulder, comforted her, raised her up, and she was able to get through the song, and she got a standing ovation at the end. You also, before he did step over, you could hear some people in the crowd cheering her on, trying to give her some encouragement. But we use that video in the training to show the power of one person doing something right. So the ABLE program was created in 2020 following George Floyd by Georgetown University. It was based on the teachings of many social scientists. We'll get into a specific one in a couple of slides. But it stands for Active Bystander in Law Enforcement. So what is active bystandership? The technical definition: actions to help prevent harm and promote the welfare of individuals and groups. So it's stepping up and helping people when they're in trouble, when they're about to do something wrong. It was founded by Dr. Irvin Staub, who's actually a professor right now at UMass. He served as a professor at Harvard. He got his degree from Stanford. And he was born in Hungary during the Nazi regime. And his family was a Jewish family. When he was little, him and his sister, she was 1.5 at the time, and he was a small boy, they were hidden by a Christian family in Hungary. And they hid him from the Hungarian Nazis during that war. And afterwards, after the war was over, Hungary went to communism. He had to deal with a very oppressive Hungarian communist regime. And during that, another person helped him. A Swedish diplomat reached out and helped his family escape communism. So they came to America where he trained and became a social scientist. He was really interested in studying bystandership afterwards because he always wondered, why did these people help me when they didn't have to? So that led to this lifelong mission of bystandership. He did a lot of work with the Rwanda genocide in the 1990s. He did work with New Orleans Police Department following some really bad racial relation years in New Orleans. And then he helped create the foundation for the ABLE program. Has anyone heard of, in 1964, of a case involving a woman in New York City called Kitty Genovese? Okay, you remember that. It was widely publicized at the time. In 1964, Kitty Genovese was a bartender in New York City. She left the bar at 2:30 at night, drove 45 minutes home, parked her car, got out. A gentleman was waiting for her. She was ultimately robbed and killed right in the middle of a busy New York apartment building. 37 people saw the robbery and the murder took place. Not one of them called the police. After that, social scientists deemed that the bystander effect. And we'll find out later on, actually, when you have a larger amount of bystanders, it's harder to intervene. That's what the studies show us. 37 people called, or 37 people saw it, nobody called. Everyone else thought the other person was going to intervene, was going to call police. That's what happens when you get these incidents with large groups of people. We learned something called the diffusion of responsibility. That's exactly what it is. Everybody else thinks somebody else is going to do it. So that lays a lot of the foundations for our Active Bystander law enforcement program. Again, it's based on 50 years of social science. It's based on real-world experience in other professions. Can anyone think of another profession that may already have active bystandership programs in it? Yep.
Education.
Education's a big one. Not only education, but specifically colleges. They're teaching bystandership to students now, especially in relationship with sexual assaults on campus,
Oh, yes.
because they're so prevalent. So there's a lot of active bystandership programs in college. One of the biggest ones and one of the most effective ones is the airline industry. When you go onto an airplane and you board, you have two pilots. And usually they're not the same rank, right? There's a head pilot and a co-pilot. There's a rank structure. So you got the more experienced pilot as the ranking officer. He's in charge of everything in the cockpit. And you got the co-pilot, usually a junior officer, doesn't have as many flight officers. There's a really big power struggle between those two officers. And often what we see in airline industry, just like our industry, mistakes can be fatal. So what the airline industry did was enact a bystandership program that empowers and gives permission to that co-pilot when he sees, or he or she sees that other pilot doing something wrong. There's ways and tactics to step up, let your concerns be known, and if it escalates to something very dangerous, you have to take over control of that airplane. And airline pilots have a lot of the same issues that police officers have. Burnout is huge. The hours that we work, working overnight hours, forced doubles, a lot of problems in your home life because the stress in the job carries over to your home life. So a lot of these are based on other professions. Surgery teams use active bystandership. Major surgery, there's probably 10 people in the room. The doctors are in charge, the anesthesiologist is in charge. bystandership allows nurses, med tech to speak up when they see something doing wrong. So law enforcement, we're getting really good at stealing ideas that have worked in other industries. We're not the smartest or most innovative people in the world, but we're very good at stealing these ideas, and that's what we've done here. Like I said, ABLE's being introduced all across the state. We'll be the 17th department in Massachusetts to be fully ABLE certified. All the bigger departments are Boston, Worcester, Framingham. So we're right along, we're getting there. It's only been for about 3-4 years it's been implemented, so there isn't a lot of research on the effectiveness, but we have a lot of anecdotal stories. One of the things about a training program like this is the real success in this program is stuff that we'll never hear about because nothing went wrong. When we do something wrong, you hear about it. It's in the newspaper. We put out press releases about officers doing things wrong. The great success of ABLE is all the stuff that we're going to prevent before it even gets out there because we're going to reduce mistakes. This isn't only about protecting officers, it's about protecting the community. It's very important for officers to protect other officers. In our job, we rely on each other. We all want to get the 25, 30, 32-year career. We want our pensions, and we want to get through safe and not in trouble. So in order to do that, we really have to rely on each other. And this program helps us understand when and how to intervene when we see another officer doing something wrong. It also protects the community. We all saw it with the George Floyd incident, 3 officers standing by doing nothing. So this is going to make sure that we are protecting the community and ourselves. Going back to other industries that have used bystandership. One of the biggest and most successful bystandership programs happened in the 1980s, and it was a TV campaign. Can anyone think of any commercials that you may have seen, print media that you've seen, that would relate to bystandership? Yep.
Drunk driving?
Exactly. Do you remember what the name of it was?
You take the keys and don't let people drive drunk.
Yep. Very close. Drunk drive. Does everyone remember the famous slogan? Friends don't let friends drive drunk. That program, when they studied it, it empowered, it didn't put the responsibility on the drunk driver, it put it on his friends and family that were allowing him to drive drunk. So what that did was it increased the intervention of drunk driving. So it increased friends not letting their other friends drive drunk by 68%. 68% of people said that they've stepped up and tried to prevent a drunk driver. So you'll see a little later that there's been some other programs that have done similar things. There's 3 pillars of ABLE: preventing misconduct, avoiding mistakes, and promoting health and wellness. The first one, preventing misconduct. We use a case study. We use 3 major case studies in the training. The first one involves an officer, Officer Lopez. She was a 4-year veteran who made an arrest of a white supremacist. She was a Latino woman, and that officer took out all his rage on her. She arrested him. They didn't have a large enough booking area. She had to wait to book him, so she was alone with him outside of the booking room. He went on a tirade of racist, misogynistic comments for about 20 minutes, screaming at her, swearing at her. She couldn't take it anymore. She snapped. She snapped because of what he was saying, and she snapped because there were 7 officers in the other room who heard what was going on and did nothing to stop him. She took his head and slammed it against the wall. The lieutenant saw it, pulled her off, and called internal affairs. And she received suspension for that and probably criminal charges. The ABLE program covered up her identity so they could be anonymous. So I don't exactly know what happened to her, but preventing misconduct, preventing that from happening. The whole point of that case study is that somebody else should have stepped in and guided her away from the scene, said something to him to make him stop, had her do something else, swap spaces with her. There's all sorts of tactics that we learned that could have prevented that. So that's preventing misconduct. Avoiding mistakes. Police officers are average people doing an almost impossible job. We're just the same as everybody else in the community. we're going to make mistakes. We use another case study, and this case study is it was actually a sergeant. We call him Sergeant McDonald. He was a 20-year vet. He was on a call with other officers at the time. Sergeant McDonald was the arresting officer, put handcuffs on the wrong way. When we put handcuffs on, we put your wrists together, so when you're behind the back, your hands are pretty much disabled. He put them on with the palms inside, which we're told not to do. Sergeant McDonald also didn't conduct a proper search. He did a very haphazard search, and other officers that were junior to him saw the search, saw the poor search, and saw him putting on the handcuffs wrong. He got put in the cruiser, he got brought to the station, he was able to get his hands underneath him to the front of his body. He pulled out a .38 revolver from his waistband and shot an officer to death. And that was all because of Sergeant McDonald's mistakes. So we use that case study to show officers we have to disregard rank. Just because there's 4 patrolmen watching a sergeant do something, they should have stepped up. Hey, Sarge, you did a poor search. Hey, Sarge, you didn't put those handcuffs on, right? Sarge, you want me to fix those handcuffs? One officer intervening in that situation could have changed that whole situation. The third one is promoting health and wellness. I will tell you, we are getting a lot better at health and wellness in policing. Some of the data that they've released from 2016 to 2020, there were 334 line of duty deaths in those 4 years. That's officers getting into a car accident, officers getting shot. There was double the amount of police suicides. There was over 600 police suicides of active duty police officers during that time. There's historically been a stigma against officers getting help for mental health, substance use disorder, and policing's actually doing a very good job now breaking down those barriers and making it okay. I know in Falmouth, if we have a critical incident, the county runs a critical incident stress team. So we all get together for about 3-4 hours. There's counselors, there's clergy, there's people from other departments, and we have a debriefing session. We've actually held one here at the senior center because we usually have them not in the station because we don't want to be thinking about anything that stresses us out over here. So we've actually used this room before, and they're fantastic, and we use them after every debrief. There's also great resources out there for police officers now. McLean Hospital, which is connected to Harvard and Boston, runs the LEADER program, law enforcement, active duty, emergency responders. So it's mental health help and substance use help for specifically police, firefighters, and active duty military. A lot of the times, police officers like to be in their own bubble. So to go to a group therapy with people that aren't in law enforcement, that don't understand the job, it's hard. So they made a program up there just specifically for law enforcement, and they're doing a great job up there. We use a case study for promoting health and wellness of Detective Jensen. Detective Jensen was a 10-year vet for his police department. He was working doubles almost every single shift. He would come into work, his uniform looked a mess, his hair looked a mess. He was also drinking a lot more. His coworkers noticed that he was going out to the bar a lot. He was having trouble at home with his marriage. So he responds to a murder scene, and the press are already there. So the murder victim had a weight problem. Detective Jensen, in front of the cameras, started making disparaging comments about the murder victim. That was caught on camera, and they aired his comments. So we tied back to that case study with the third pillar of Able. Officers that he worked with, whether it's officers of his own rank, above, below him, should have stepped up and said, hey, something's going on at home. What's going on? You're going to the bar every night. You're overworking. Your uniform looks sloppy. What's going on? How can I help you? Nobody stepped up and intervened in that. And it shows you that without intervention, there could be some really bad consequences. Going back to when we first adopted the ABLE program, so I'm one of the ABLE trainers. Detective Brandt, our school resource officer, is our second ABLE trainer, and we've conducted 2 trainings so far, the last 2 Wednesdays. So we've got 2/3 of the department trained in this. In order to get into the program, it's It's not just, hey, I want to be an able trainer. My department wants to be an able department. We need to actually apply to the able program to get in. So the town was extremely supportive. I got letters of support from the chief of police, the town manager, Susie Hoffman from Falmouth Health and Human Services, and Henry St. Julian, who's the school's Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Belong Director. So they all stepped up, researched the program, and gave letters of support to get into the program. All the officers are going to go through an 8-hour block of training. We've already done 2/3 of our department. We have our last one this Wednesday. And then we'll have most of our department trained. We'll do a makeup day later this year. After that, every year, every officer in the department is going to have to go to 2 hours of an able refresher. Sometimes there are some updates. Sometimes they forget some of the tactics. So we're going to have an annual update. Me and Detective Brandt will also be able to train other police departments. If Mashpee PD wants to do the ABLE program, me and Detective Brandt can go over there and train their department. And then we're hoping that the ABLE program changes some of the culture in the police department. We want officers to be comfortable in any situation stepping up and intervening. Rank is huge in policing, and sometimes that's what's called an inhibitor. People don't step up because a ranking officer is doing something wrong, because it's uncomfortable for me to tell the chief, hey chief, you're talking to that person really rude. That's a really uncomfortable situation for me. So changing the culture really matters. I want Chief Lourie to be able to accept my intervention and not be mad at me afterwards and demote me back to sergeant. All right, I work Monday through Friday now. I really like my schedule, and I would like to stay here. So like I said, this is a harm reduction prevention program. I don't think there's going to be any program that's going to completely eliminate some of the issues in law enforcement, but we're hoping to dramatically reduce these occurrences. And the good thing about ABLE, we're not changing any of the reporting requirements. All the officers are already held to reporting requirements when they see misconduct. That's called the duty to intervene and duty to report. And those laws got stronger with police reform that happened a couple of years ago. Some of the other ABLE standards, community accountability. I'm telling you fine folks about the ABLE program. I hope to get the word out there. I hope some of the newspapers pick up this program. In the second blurb there, meaningful training, I was honestly really worried. A lot of our training's really fun and hands-on in law enforcement. When we go to the firearm range, it's a good day. Officers enjoy it. We do different drills. We train defensive tactics. It's fun. We get to wrestle with each other. So some of the other trainings can be quite boring. So I was really nervous coming in, training the department. But I'll tell you, I was really relieved after the first training. They really took to it. We had discussions the whole time, and I started it with, if you don't agree with something, speak up and let's talk about it. Officers spoke up, they engaged the whole time, we had a lot of laughs, there's a lot of brainstorming, and at the end there's role play. So we had officers in different scenarios. They got to be the person that needed to be intervened, the officer that was doing something wrong. Another officer would be the intervener, so they practiced the tactics. We had some really good successes, and we all learned a lot, even the ranking officers. One of the role plays that we did involved a protest. So we had 4 officers pretend to be the protesters, and they were protesting police brutality. So it was great because they got to shout at the other officers on the other side of the room, whatever they wanted. So they made signs and held up and did slogans. And then there's 2 officers on the other side. One's the person who needs an intervention, one's the person who's going to intervene. So we had one officer be really rude and unprofessional and almost act like they were going to go assault the protesters. So that officer who was practicing being the intervener had to use his tactics, what he learned, calm that officer down, get him away from the scene, prevent any sort of misconduct. So the officer did a fantastic job. I was blown away, and I'm like, I think I'm a really good teacher. So I'm like, wow. So in talking to that officer, he was one of our lateral transfers that came on this year. He has years in the job. He used to be the deputy chief of Berkeley School of Music in Boston. And we're talking to him afterwards, we're debriefing, and I go to him, I go, Pat, how'd you do that so good? He goes, we had protests every weekend up in Berkeley. He goes, that was my weekend. That's all we did was deal with violent, tumultuous protesters. So that's easy for me. So he talked about it, and he gave people tactics, and we all learned from each other. When you get a group of officers in the room, we're rarely 20 people in a room, you know, just talking about different stuff, talking about scenarios, it's really beneficial for the entire department. So people left there laughing, they had a good time, and I've already had people reach out wanting to be an ABLE trainer and help with the program. So it's been really good, the feedback's been really good with the department. I already talked about implementation, supporting intervention in police and practice. We're going to have an ABLE policy in our policies and procedures, which will align really good because we're reviewing all of our policies and procedures in hopes of reaching accreditation soon. So I sent it to Captain DeCosta. He's in charge of doing all of our policies right now. Employee wellness, we're going to continue to support employee wellness. We just had our annual physical fitness tests last week. Officers get to choose to come out and take the test. And I was very happy with the amount of officers that took the test and passed the test, proving that they have physical fitness standards all set. Like I said, no new reporting requirements. A lot of officers here and other departments thought this was some sort of ratting program. We're going to rat other officers out. And this isn't what it is. There's no new reporting requirements. Officers are still held to the same standard as they were before, with the duty to report and duty to intervene if they see something going wrong. This program just teaches them the tactics on how to do that. And especially for officers to be comfortable if they do get intervened on, to not hate that person, to thank that person afterwards, to debrief with the conversation. So it's really good. Part of the ABLE refresher and new data research that happens with bystandership is going to be reported. Going back a little bit, we use a lot of social science experiments to present to the officers why this works. So one of my favorite ones was done in 1973 by a couple social researchers at Princeton. Princeton had a seminary school, a school for priests. So they used 63 students who were studying to be priests as their studies, or as their study subjects. So what they did was they told all these, they kind of lied to them. They told them you're going to be coming in and you're going to be taking a personality quiz because we want to see why you want to be a priest. And then after that, you have to give a 5-minute speech on the other side of campus on a topic. So they brought them in, they did the personality quiz. So they split the seminary students up into 2 groups. The first group was the low hurry group. So what they did was they told that student, you need to get to the other side of campus, but you're really early, we're ahead of schedule, so take your time getting over there. So each student, when they walked over to the other building, encountered somebody in crisis. They had an actor on the ground in a 4-foot alley that was in distress, crying for help. So what they did was they tallied up how many students actually stopped to help that person. So they took that number. And then with the other half of the students, they were told, get to the other building, hurry up, do it fast, you're late. Same scenario. They're going to the other building, they see someone in crisis down below. So we had a high hurry group and a low hurry group. So with the high hurry group, that was we'll start with the low hurry group. Of the people who were not in a hurry, what percentage stopped to help that person when they thought they had extra time? What do we think? Most of them, I got 50, most of them.
10%.
What did you say? 10%? So people in a low hurry, they had all the time in the world, only 63% stopped to help that person. Which, there's some seminary students who think more would stop. So what about the high hurry group, the people who were in a rush? What do we think, how many of them stopped? 20%, 5%? 63%. It was 10%. Only 1 out of 10 people in a hurry stopped to help that person. So we use social science experiments like this to enforce the foundations of ABLE, and this teaches officers to slow down calls. Sometimes, especially when we're going to a hot call, we're in a rush. We're in a rush to get there, we're going lights and sirens, we're hurrying. Sometimes our dinner's sitting at the station, we want to get back to our dinner. So what we teach officers, slow down. Once you get there and secure the scene, make sure the scene's safe. You have all the time in the world most of the time to work out these complex scenes. Be calm with people, don't hurry. Hurrying, mistakes happen. So we use the social science results, saying, hey, when you're in a high hurry, you're not going to stop to help them people. You're not going to notice these things. Officers often get tunnel vision. Have we all heard of tunnel vision?
Oh, yeah.
When we're so focused on a call, our sense of time is distorted. Anything that's going on outside of what we're focused on, we can have something going on over here, we don't even notice. We don't hear specific sounds. It's called auditory exclusion. We're so focused on what we're doing because we're in a rush, our adrenaline's pumping, so we're trying to get officers to slow down and take their time. Slowing officers down will definitely prevent mistakes, so that's part of the training. Sustainability and commitment, that's self-explanatory. We're going to commit to this. Officers have really enjoyed it. We're going to keep doing the 2 hours every year. We're going to hopefully get other officers on the Cape train in this. Again, this is sort of the model of how we do our training. We start with the foundations and benefits of active bystandership, why and how ABLE works. We talk about the professions, the social science experiments, and then we talk about the tactics involved in actually being an active bystander. So tactically, we use a lot of different methods when we arrive at scenes to size up the scene. When I taught teachers, when I was a school resource officer, how to respond to a violent intruder, we use a thing called the OODA loop. It's kind of a funny name and you'll never forget it. But it's observe, orient, decide, act. It's a system that you use in your brain to size up a scene. So ABLE simplifies it a little bit. So we do notice, decide, act. We notice that something's wrong. We notice that an officer's being a professional, that they're not ironing their uniform, that their hair is a mess. And then we decide what to do. We're gonna intervene somehow. We're either gonna intervene or we're gonna find someone else to intervene, but somehow we're gonna intervene on what's going wrong. And then act is the last one. We're gonna act on that. And we learn the skills and tactics. The skills and tactics are directly involved in how to do it. We use two more acronyms. Law enforcement loves acronyms, so we use the 3 Ds, direct, delegate, and distract. So those are 3 tasks you can do. So if you see an officer doing something wrong, you can distract him. Hey, if they're talking to a professional, let's get them off subject. Hey, did you catch the Patriots game last night? Can you believe the Dolphins beat them? They really, really stink. What's going on? Let's talk about how Drake May needs to come in. You distract them. Also, you can delegate them. If you're at a scene, say you're working some sort of high-profile scene, a critical incident, that officer's doing something wrong. We go back to Detective Jensen. He's making rude comments. Let's get him away from the cameras. Let's have him do something to get his mind off whatever's making him act inappropriately. Hey, Jensen, can you go put up the police tape around the perimeter? Can you go take those witness statements? Can you do this? Hey, can you go to the station, order 20 cheese pizzas and bring them out because these guys are hungry? Give them something else to do. The third one is direct. That's when the situation's gone on a little too far and you need to be more stern with that person. Hey, get away from that scene. Hey, stop doing that. Hey, calm down. It's a more direct approach. We stole something really good from the airline industry. They use an acronym PACT, P-A-C-T, and that sort of sets a continuum of how to intervene. So they take 2 pilots in an unsafe situation. They use the example. They're going directly into a group of storm clouds, and they say, the co-pilot can say, he can probe first. He can say, hey Cap, are we flying into that storm, that storm system when we could be going around it? You're being respectful, you're asking respectful situations, you're not challenging authority. And if that doesn't work, we go to the A. We can go ask, Cap, isn't that unsafe? Our policy is to fly around that storm system. And then if that doesn't work, we go to the C, the challenge. Cap, I think this is wrong. We shouldn't be going into this. Why are you making this decision? If that doesn't work, you go to T, take action. Cap, this is really unsafe. I'm taking over the controls of the airplane, and I'm going to report you. That's your last line of defense. So we use a lot of acronyms, and acronyms help officers, they can remember it better. So we use 3Ds and PACT as two of our main tactics at Able Training. Able is more than just training. Agencies must commit to creating a culture of active bystandership by regularly participating and reinforcing the Able principles. So like I said, I think that most officers are going to accept it. After, if they do have to be intervened on, they're going to be okay afterwards. And they know that the officers are looking out for their best interest. Kind of wrapping it up here. Again, there are more than 400 police departments all over the country that are able trained. Over 170,000 officers at those able trained departments, which means over 100 million people in the population are served by the able training. So we're hoping that it catches on, more departments will do it. We're committed to making it work at the department, and I think it's going to be a really good thing for our department, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have about the program. Yeah, go ahead.
So just to jump in real quick. So when I was in Westboro and we implemented this, I remember we were getting accredited and certified with the 6th edition through Accreditation Commission in Massachusetts. And I remember the director saying, you know, I know, Chief, no one likes to go first. Well, I love going first. So this, if you think about this, 17 communities in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, that's 351 cities and towns. All the colleges and universities we have, we're going to be one of 17. I'm really proud of that. And that the lieutenant stepped up and did this for us is amazing. The other initiative, you reminded me of a few things. We wrote a grant for body cameras. We were awarded one of the largest grants in the state for an agency our size, $250,000. We're going to be trying out 3 different models, Axon, Motorola, and GTAC. And that program we rolled out in the coming months. And again, 100% buy-in from your staff. It's transparency, it's accountability moving forward. And one other thing that he brought up when we talk about serving you folks, right? We talk about the 6th sector. There's a study we're putting in our staffing study that was done in Falmouth in 1969. It said we should have 6 sectors. There was another study that was done in the 90s that said we should have 7. I'm saying COVID happened and no one left. We're probably close to 40,000 people here. We should have 8 sectors. I want to add K9 units to the department to better serve us, all the large events we have, all the narcotics issues that we're having. You know, we want to have a robust traffic division. We want to have programs like this, innovative programs, and be able to properly, adequately train our officers in all the different areas of policing. And people refer to us constantly as, you know, you're law enforcement. I don't believe that's true. I think it's one of the things that's a tool in our toolbox, but we're policing. Just what this today is called, policing with the people, being able to provide services that are second to none to you folks. Proud to say we have 2 clinicians, probably could use a 3rd. When I first came here, I'm like, wow, 2 clinicians, I need that. And I can tell you, we absolutely do. And when we did our coffee with a cop on Saturday, 2 to 4, Molly, one of our clinicians, was there. You'll see, Falmouth TV, thank you very much for taping that. This handsome gentleman was there supporting us. She did an interview, and hopefully you'll get to see that. So it's programs like this, it's employees like Lieutenant Hergt, surrounded by rock stars. I tell you, it's for the Beatles. And I'm very proud of what he's doing, very proud of what the staff is doing. And again, if you have any questions, I'm sure the good lieutenant can answer them. He's one of 7 people that I've promoted so far, 2 more promotions in January. So it's exciting times, Falmouth PD.
I'd like to give one PSA for this weekend. It's Columbus Day weekend, but it's also Cape Cod Marathon weekend. The half marathon's on Saturday in the morning, starting at 8, and then Sunday is the full marathon. That starts at 8 as well. And the whole east side along the water of town will be taken up by thousands of runners. The roads are going to be open to residents, but please try to avoid those roads for your sake and the runner's sake. So, any questions about anything? Yes?
Just with the mic, please. Thank you.
Have you talked to the steamship authority? They put a catamaran up on the rocks not too long ago, and I think they need this training badly.
Actually, that's a great point. I haven't talked to the steamship authority. As the chief told you, we're working with the steamship about some commercial truck issues. So I'll definitely mention that to them. It's a great idea. It's the same as an airline, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they probably have a pilot, a co-pilot in there.
Mass Maritime also should teach their students this is part of their training. We happen to know someone who happens to be a senior at Mass Maritime.
Yep,
His
definitely.
father's an airline pilot.
Absolutely, I'm sure, but we'll definitely mention that to you. And going back to the 3 Ps that I talked about earlier, we stole that from the United States Marine Corps, apparently. So, anything else? Yes?
How do you convince people that when they say something, the consequences are not that bad? Or how do you tell another police officer that you need his safety and work together, which is such a dangerous job, that you need him, that when you say something about him or her, that it's not the same? How do you convince them?
So a lot of this training, that third pillar, promoting health and wellness, we talk about the stressors in law enforcement, some of the stuff that we deal with, the suicide, the depression, the substance use, and we connect all that back to your family. So I do a lot of talking about how misconduct, mistakes, your health directly impacts your family at home. And I think every police officer who has a family, that's their number one priority in their life. So when you tell them, this is about protecting each other, helping out your brother and sister officers so they can get home safe to their family, so they can get home to their family with a job, so they can have the chance at a pension at the end of their career. That's one of the ways that we try and promote the program. And we make everyone comfortable with the program. We also use in there, I'm not going to tell you guys, but we have a code word that we've developed in this able training. So any officer knows, hey, if I whisper in Chief Lourie's ear a code word, it's going to specifically mean, hey, I'm intervening, we need to change the situation, something bad's going to happen. So it's a way that the public doesn't really know what's going on, so you're not embarrassing that officer. It's something discreet between the men and women of the police department that they know exactly what that other officer means. We watch a lot of, in the training videos of officers that intervened really well, and a lot of them who didn't intervene really well. Unfortunately, there was a video out there, it's from a few years ago. A sergeant was in the back of a police cruiser about to pepper spray someone who was already handcuffed in the police cruiser. So in that situation, there's no need to pepper spray that person. Absolutely no need. So a younger female officer grabbed his belt and pulled him away like this. There's a video of that on YouTube. That sergeant turned around and assaulted that female officer for touching him. Something tells me that they're not an able department. So we're hoping that this 8 hours of training makes everybody comfortable intervening and accepting interventions.
How do you get me to say something? Not to be afraid of the consequences of the public, me saying something, reporting somebody.
Sure, as a citizen, yeah, sure. So there's anti-retaliation laws on the books already. If you make a complaint on an officer, there's laws, policies, and procedures that we don't go out and try and stop you all day and things like that. It's not worth our job, to be honest with you. So, yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just curious, what percentage of police officers are military veterans? That must be difficult because they come from one culture.
Yeah, I don't know the exact percentage. I can think off the top of my head.
A third.
Yeah, I was going to say around 20 at least. And we still have some in the active, that are active in the National Guard. We just had an officer get back from a year-long deployment. And when you said it's a change in culture, sometimes it's almost the same culture. And that's why a lot of them are drawn to this field. There's the same camaraderie, same rank structure. They're helping people, they're doing their civic duty. So they are drawn to it. A lot of them, there is a change in the fact that, you're going to a hot call and you're not overseas, you're in Falmouth. So it's a little bit of a change, but they're some of our best officers, and yeah.
Can I add one thing to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So look, we've hired a lot of people, and one of the things that I look for when we're hiring, we hire good people, and that have the guardian mindset, that can turn that switch to become a warrior at times. We talk about use of force and different things. It's never pretty. Use of force is not pretty, but at times it's very necessary. We've been involved in a lot of incidents throughout our careers where sadly we've had to take physical action. So it's by hiring that guardian mindset, that person who really wants to help protect people, and that can take that switch and then shut that switch down and now offer care and kindness to that person, and try to de-escalate the situation. And I think that's what this is. It's all about de-escalating the situation and making sure that we do the right thing. And that's what I believe what integrity means, right? It's doing the right thing when no one's watching, right? When you don't realize people are watching you. And that's what we're trying to do. So we just did a big hire. 3 people are going to the academy. We also interviewed 4 lateral transfers. They're current police officers in other departments that I passed on. We passed on as a committee, as a group, because we want to make sure we hire the right people that are going to help and protect you folks, because that's what we're doing every day. We're just trying to help and protect people and really improve quality of life in the town of Falmouth for all of us, right? We're all residents here. So I'm really proud of the promotional process that we have in place and the hiring process that we have in place. And it's done by committee. I have a patrol officer, a sergeant, a lieutenant, a captain, the deputy chief, and myself. We're all on this committee. I hold the chief's card. I go last, so I can veto if I like. But I listen. And Eddie Moore, one of the patrolmen that were on it, there was someone we interviewed, and we said, well, we'll put this one on for the next interview cycle. And he said, I'm not comfortable with this person backing me up or my brothers and sisters up. And I thought about that. And I thought about what Ed said, and I go, he's right. He's the tide that meets the road. He's on the road every day dealing with these things, and he sees something that's very concerning. So it's not worth taking a risk. It's just not worth taking a risk. So I went into the committee meeting, and I said, I'm rethinking, what we were going to do about re-interviewing. We're not. We're going to go on to another candidate. And that's what it's all about. It's teamwork that makes the dream work, so we're better able to serve you folks. Able.
Yeah.
I have to take off. Just so you know, I hope you all can make it next month, because Officer Julia Massey is going to come in, and we're both going to present to you on our community engagement team, which that's what this is, community engagement. So.
I'll be around for a little bit if anybody wants to talk.